Let's step right into the shadows of a grim, gothic fable today. We're exploring the fall of the Gilded Hollow. Think of this explainer as a massive philosophical deep dive into the truly tragic nature of justice and, well, human resentment. So, what happens when justice is merely a mask for resentment? That's the unsettling question we're going to unpack right now. What if the very systems we build to protect us are actually fueled by this dark, unconscious desire to punish? For this explainer, I want you to basically act as the jury in our metaphysical trial. Keep that echoing in your mind as we look at the evidence, because honestly, the answer might completely change how you view the world. To really get the tragedy here, we have to understand the setting. Picture the Gilded Hollow in the epic before its ruin, a theater of just immense grandeur. It had these massive columns built from lacquered ambition. But you see, the whole thing was literally an architecture of appearances. Its chandeliers, they didn't burn with the wild, unpredictable energy of real fire. No, they burned with the steady, airless glow of precedent. A society perfectly ordered, perfectly preserved, and completely devoid of any real, living vitality. Now, right at the summit of this hollowed-out society sat the High Judge. And he wasn't just a man, right? He was the ultimate embodiment of the superego. Cloaked in the sheer ceremonial weight of all this accumulated law, he wielded a gavel that was so ancient, the living had completely forgotten the very first blow it ever struck. His authority essentially maintained this precarious stasis through a completely sterile desire for safety. He didn't elevate the human spirit, he suppressed it, just to maintain absolute, unchanging order. And the specific legal framework he used to pull this off is called the law of insulation. It's fascinating because the Hollow's order wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. It was just suffocating. It insulated the fearful from the shock of becoming. So instead of letting people face adversity and actually grow strong, the law acted like a bandage over a wound that was never, ever allowed to heal. It protected the weak, sure, but exactly like a museum protects its exhibits. Safe behind glass, yes, but totally denied air, sunlight, and any chance of further development. And the real kicker? The Hollow actually celebrated this absolute stagnation as mercy. Okay, let's dive into this. Because you really can't have a sky-high tower of sterile order without digging a very dark basement. Up above, in that blinding, chandelier-lit court of appearances, we have the High Judge. But if we travel down, beneath the polished stone where the condemned stood, we find this damp, dark space of gray silk beneath the floorboards. And down here crouches Von Nitz, the tarantula. He literally spins his web in the silent pauses between the judge's hollow verdicts. Now, unlike the judge, Von Nix requires no throne. He needs no booming authority. Instead, he works with the terrifying, grim patience that only the deeply resentful possess. He just weaves his gray silk in the dark. As the source material beautifully puts it, his web wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a patient philosophy made tactile, strand by strand. And what exactly is that philosophy? It's the equality of flatness. This is the tarantula's invisible doctrine. It doesn't connect souls through kinship or love. Nope, it connects them through the subtle, insidious leveling of all distinction. The tarantula doesn't preach, he just ensures that the darkness below is absolutely identical to the space above. And here is the true, terrifying genius of his web. He knows his venom doesn't need to be called venom. It only needs to be called justice. So we've got the High Judge up above, imposing this suffocating mercy, and the tarantula down below, spinning a venomous equality. Imagine, just for a moment, a metaphysical courtroom debate between these two forces, a total clash of hidden resentments. Listen closely to how these two dark figures justify their existence. Picture the High Judge looking down from his blinding tribunal at the chaotic, unfiltered human spirit. He declares, "We bandage the wound to protect the weak from the shock of becoming." To him, human potential is just a danger. Growth is a massive risk. He prosecutes vitality itself in the name of total safety. But then, immediately rising through the cracks in the floorboards, comes the whisper of the tarantula. He counters the judge's grand proclamations with his own twisted doctrine, hissing, "And I weave the gray silk to ensure they never walk at all." He doesn't want to protect anyone. He wants to paralyze them, dragging everyone down into the exact same motionless, flat equality. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophical revelation of our fable. While the judge's mask of virtue halts human elevation just to preserve a sterile safety, the tarantula's venom of justice destroys human elevation out of pure, leveling resentment. They seem like opposites, right? Light versus dark, law versus underground rebellion, but they harbor a shared, profound disdain for the living, breathing citizens of the Hollow. Both of their philosophies are fundamentally anti-life. So let's see how this builds to the climax. Because an architecture built purely on appearances and hidden rot, it just can't stand forever. Eventually, the Hollow faces its ultimate reckoning, the verdict of the void mirror. This is the exact moment that fragile illusion of value shatters completely. When the void mirror is turned upon the Gilded Hollow, it reflects the absolute truth. It strips away all the legalistic facades and exposes the judge's mercy for the mask that it truly is. And it reveals something terrifying. The law of the high judge was never built on justice. Beneath all the robes and ancient precedent, the mirror uncovers a purposeless, burning desire to punish. It proves that the judge in the blinding light and the tarantula in the damp dark ultimately serve the exact same thirst for retribution. Once that underlying nihilism is exposed, the collapse is incredibly rapid. First, the mask of mercy falls away. The lie is dead. Without that moral cover, the inferno of nihilism immediately ignites. Those ancient symbols of the illusion, the gavel and the throne, they literally dissolve to ash in the fire of truth. And finally, from those ashes emerges the true instrument of this society, a branding iron of raw punishment. So the crucial point is that the grim reality of this transformation is undeniable. The sterile order is discarded for a branding iron, subsumed by pure retribution. The Gilded Hollow falls not because it gets attacked from the outside, but because its unsustainable mask of virtue collapses inward. The architecture of appearances becomes the architecture of retribution. Which brings us right back to you, the jury. As we close out this explainer, I really want to leave you with a chilling final thought. When we advocate for rules, for equality, or for protection, are we truly elevating the human spirit? Or are we, like the high judge and the tarantula, just hiding our own resentments? Is your pursuit of justice merely a masked desire to punish? It's a heavy, complex question for sure, but diving into it might just be the very thing that keeps our own structures from turning to ash. Thanks for exploring this fable with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.